Starting. Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with Mr. David Fairbairn. He's a home inspector in Vancouver, one of the most respected and recommended, one of the best guys for you to call. How are you doing today, David?
Yeah, I'm good, Mark. Thanks for selling me a bit there, but yeah, no, I love what I do.
So we're going to talk about furnaces, and well, I guess you get asked this a lot. So how long do they last?
Okay, well, it's a pretty simple answer. We could do a sort of a short video and say, they're about 25 years. That's the word that kind of gets thrown around. But I'd like to go a little bit more into why they last as long as they last. Which furnaces last a little bit longer, and also how you can make it last longer than it should. So yeah, short and sweet answer. Most furnaces, the number you're going to hear is around 25 years. And that's not a hard and fast rule. It's like saying a car only lasts for a certain amount of kilometers. It's not really fair because there's so many other factors at play. And to illustrate my point, I'm sort of in a house here that is built around 1984, 1985, and we're actually looking at a 30-year-old, almost 30-year-old furnace here. This is an old Airco furnace. I've got the panel right here. You can see the, I think this color actually is illegal now, but this is, this was a BC company or a Canadian company that manufactured a ton of furnaces, and then they eventually went out of business, but they made some really good quality furnaces. So this is the kind of thing that we come across in our home inspections where we're sort of going, it's an older furnace, but this is a pretty well-respected make, and they have the tendency to go a lot longer than 25 years. And we see this a lot in older homes. I've gone into houses from 1965 with an original furnace, and the furnace was still working. So one of the big things is don't think about it like 25 years and then I have to replace my furnace. The benefits you may get are, your efficiency might go up a little bit. This furnace here is about 80% efficient, a little bit less than that, maybe, probably in the 75 to 80% range. A brand new furnace right now, you can get around 98% efficient. So that's usually what prompts somebody to replace a furnace, is, you get some sort of incentive, or, it's just, it's loud. I hear that a lot too. The furnace is getting really loud, or, I want to save some money, or I've got a friend who, installs furnaces. He's going to be able to put in a brand new high efficiency furnace for me. Generally you're going to hear the number 25 thrown around. I like to say, 25 or more with good maintenance.
So what services could you do to make it last longer?
The big thing here is that we're going to want to get it serviced annually by a qualified heating contractor. And a lot of people don't do this. And I would sort of compare this with changing the oil in your car. You're going to want to get it serviced before it gets cold. I usually recommend, when the kids go back to school in September, get your furnace serviced. Have somebody go through it, clean it out. And there's a couple things they do that you probably can't do yourself. First of all, if it's a more modern furnace, they're going to look for, there's a lot of equipment on them, like computer equipment and your thermostat controls, that you may not understand the full workings of, that they're going to want to go through and make sure it's set up properly. For example, I've seen, actually in one of my places, we had a heat pump that fired at the same time as the furnace firing, and it actually caused a big problem with the compressor. And that was because of a faulty thermostat. So the thermostat was running both, and it shouldn't be. And a normal person might not be able to catch that. So that's why you're going to want to call somebody every year to have a look over your furnace. They're also going to balance your burners, make sure that you have the right air to fuel mixture so that it's burning clean. And the reason we want to do that is so if you have a flame that's dirty, or it's burning too rich, it's going to leave deposits on the inside of your heat exchanger. Now, your heat exchanger is the heart of your furnace. And if you get a bunch of deposits on there, you could overheat the heat exchanger and it could prematurely fail. If your heat exchanger goes, you basically have to replace your furnace. So that's the kind of thing that they're going to do: balance it, clean it out, check your blower, oil the motor, and that can really go a long way. The next thing you should do to prolong the life of your furnace is to change the filters regularly. And this is a big one that a lot of people miss, at least in Vancouver, I see a lot of people actually not realizing this needs to be done. Here we've got two access panels here for our filter. And if you open it up, there's a small cartridge filter in there, and you should be changing this. It really depends on if you have on your living conditions, but I usually recommend every 3 months going through and changing out your filter. You can buy a washable filter if you don't feel like going to the store and buying new filters all the time. You can buy a washable filter that you can clean yourself, and then it's just a reusable filter. Or you can go to the store and just get a whole bunch of 3M filters and keep them in your furnace room, and you should change them basically as often as it gets dirty. I find some houses with, if they've got pets or if they're smokers, you're going to have to change that filter quite a bit more frequently than if you have a clean house with one person living there. So it really just depends on your usage. But those two things, servicing your furnace yearly and changing your filters regularly, will extend the life of your furnace by a considerable amount, and it'll pay dividends later.
So what goes wrong when the furnace doesn't operate anymore?
Well, there's a couple things, really obvious stuff like, there's no heat, and that can be due to a number of factors. You could have a faulty gas valve. You could have, your blower could be gone. So there's that sort of category of problems where there's no heat. And then you get into some other things that cause furnaces to fail. I was talking before about a heat exchanger failure. As we get older, this furnace, it's getting up there in years. It's still good. We've had it checked out recently, and it's doing fine. But the heat exchanger inside, it's not going to last forever. And if it cracks, that's a huge safety hazard, because all of a sudden your combustion gas and your carbon monoxide is entering the airstream that's being supplied to the house. And at that point, you could have a, carbon monoxide poisoning issue. So that's why we don't want to let furnaces get so old that you could have a heat exchanger crack in it. And just to hammer home that point about getting it inspected yearly, that's something that a good heating company can check for. So the heat exchanger failure would be your big one. That's usually a straight replacement. You're just going to replace the furnace. They're not usually available for a very old furnace. You would just replace it. On a newer furnace, you might be able to replace it, but it's going to be expensive. So that's one of the things. Second of all, little things like if you get a bad thermocouple, or if you get a bad igniter, those are small things that can be repaired by a heating contractor. They're not too bad. And then lastly, of course, your blower. If your blower goes, you won't have any air moving through the house. And at that point, your furnace is definitely not going to work. So that's usually what fails on these older furnaces. And then, of course, the last thing that prompts somebody to replace a furnace is to save money on your heating bill. And then you get into some, maybe there might be an incentive to buy a high efficiency furnace.
So, okay, something's gone wrong. I got to replace my furnace. How much does a new one cost?
New furnace, you're looking at, on the low end of things, you can get one around $2,500 for a real cheapo, up to about $4,500. So there's a bit of a swing there in quality, and it really depends on who you talk to. So I usually say it's around $3,000 to $4,000. And of course, if you get a better furnace, you're going to get, you're going to get better features on it. You're going to get, you might be able to get a bit better efficiency, and of course, the quality is going to be better. It may last a little bit longer. So it's going to cost that to put it in. There are some rebates and grants you can get if you contact your local heating company. They can give you some information about any rebates you can get on a furnace. Obviously, we want to have every house have a high efficiency furnace, because you can cut down on your heating bill by 15-20%, and that definitely, it not only adds up in your pocket, you're saving a lot of money that way, but you're also saving the environment.
What about stuff like heat pumps?
Heat pumps, yeah, heat pumps are great. They're huge right now. I remember when they were first started making an appearance on the scene and going, they were kind of misunderstood, but they were, the thing with heat pumps is that they don't save you quite as much as they used to, just because of the increase in furnace efficiency. So your savings aren't going to be quite as extreme as they were when heat pumps sort of made an appearance, but Heat pumps are a great idea, namely because you do increase the efficiency of your system, and you also get air conditioning, and that's a huge thing. In Vancouver, air conditioning isn't quite as critical as an area like Toronto or Winnipeg, where you have a hot, humid summer. But to have that option is really quite desirable. A heat pump you can install onto an existing furnace, or a lot of the time, if you have an older furnace, you're just going to do a heat pump with a new high efficiency furnace in the same shot. Costs on a heat pump, you're probably looking around 5,000, 45,000 for a heat pump installed. And of course, they can set it up to work with your existing furnace if it's not too old, or just see if you can get a rebate or a grant and put in an all new system. And of course, you're going to be up around 99% efficient.
Great. Anything else?
Nope. You know what? Check them out. Get them inspected annually. Install a carbon monoxide detector in your house if you have a forced air system. So if you've got a furnace in your house, you need to have a carbon monoxide detector on every floor. And this is because carbon monoxide, it's an odorless, colorless gas, and it's extremely poisonous. And if you have a problem with your furnace and all of a sudden you have a carbon monoxide leak, you may not know about it until it's too late. So that's the cheapest insurance, and probably the best advice I can give you is to install those. Aside from that, pop your, in this case, it's on the main floor, this furnace room. Open it up every month or two, have a look at it, see if it's making any funny sounds, check the color of your flame. And there's a lot of good information on the web about how to do your own furnace inspections, but of course you're going to want to leave it to a qualified professional, just like you would with your car.
Awesome. So we've been talking with Mr. David Fairbairn of Fairbairn Inspections. You can see what kind of service he provides at fairbairninspections.com. Lots of testimonials there, lots of testimonials on the internet as well. You can reach him at 604-395-2795. Thanks a lot, David.
Hey, thanks, Mark.